The crystal chandelier cast fractured light across the grand ballroom as Gladys Kingston watched her 17-year marriage crumble before 200 guests. Her champagne flute trembled slightly in her hand, the expensive liquid inside barely touched as she observed her husband, Hayes Kingston, twirl another woman across the dance floor. Not just any woman, Tiffany Riker, 28 years old, executive assistant at Hayes's company. The whispers had reached Gladys months ago, but she had chosen to ignore them, to maintain the facade of their perfect life, their perfect marriage. "Mom, are you okay?" Danielle, her 15-year-old daughter, appeared at her side, dark eyes, so like her father's, narrowed with concern. Gladys forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart. It's our anniversary party. Everything is perfect." But it wasn't. Nothing had been perfect for years. 17 years ago, Gladys had been a promising writer with a manuscript nearly complete and a substantial inheritance from her grandmother. Then she met Hayes, charismatic, ambitious, with dreams bigger than his bank account. She had fallen hard and fast, investing not just her heart, but her inheritance into his fledgling business ventures. "He's dancing with her again," Danielle said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. Everyone staring. Indeed they were. The elegant crowd of Seattle's business elite, their friends, family members, all watching as Hayes held Tiffany closer than propriety allowed, whispering something in her ear that made her laugh, her head tilting back to expose her slender throat. Gladys took a sip of champagne, the bubbles bitter on her tongue. At 42, she was still beautiful, her honey blonde hair swept into an elegant updo, her green dress complementing her eyes. But standing in the same room as Tiffany made her feel every one of her years. Years spent supporting Hayes, raising their daughter, postponing her own dreams until they had disappeared altogether. "I'm going to get some air," Gladys said, handing her glass to a passing waiter. She had almost reached the terrace doors when the music stopped, and Hayes cleared his throat, tapping a knife against his own champagne flute. The crowd quieted, turning toward him expectantly. "I'd like to thank everyone for joining us to celebrate 17 wonderful years with my beautiful wife Gladys," Hayes announced, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Gladys froze. For a moment, a sliver of hope pierced her heart. Perhaps she had misinterpreted. Perhaps this was all a terrible misunderstanding. 17 years is a significant milestone, Hayes continued, his gaze finding hers across the room, "and I wanted to mark the occasion with something special." He reached into his tuxedo jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Gladys felt a flush creep up her neck. The diamond necklace she had admired at Tiffany's, the irony of the store's name didn't escape her just last month. Hayes had noticed. He had remembered. But then Hayes turned, not toward Gladys, but to Tiffany, who stood beaming at his side. "Tiffany has been an invaluable support to me professionally," Hayes said, opening the box to reveal a glittering diamond pendant, "and I wanted to express my gratitude for her dedication." The silence in the room was deafening. 200 guests held their breath as Hayes placed the necklace around Tiffany's neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. Gladys couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The humiliation burned through her veins like acid. Across the room, she locked eyes with Gordon Winters, the investor Hayes had been courting for months, whose puzzled expression was quickly morphing into distaste. "Mom," Danielle whispered, suddenly at her side again, "let's go." But before Gladys could respond, Tiffany's voice rang out, deliberately loud enough for those nearby to hear. "It's stunning, Hayes. Almost as valuable as that inheritance your wife spent on you." Several gasps sounded nearby. Danielle stiffened. "What did you just say?" Danielle stepped forward, her teenage face flushed with fury. Tiffany smirked, fingers toying with her new necklace. "Oh, sweetheart, surely you know your father built his empire with your mother's money. It's common knowledge in the office." "Enough, Tiffany," Hayes muttered, suddenly aware of the attention they were attracting. "You know what else is common knowledge?" Tiffany continued, her voice carrying in the hushed room. "That your mother gave up being a writer to support your dad. Sacrificed her dreams. Such a shame, really. All those wasted years." It was the condescending pat on Danielle's shoulder that did it. The casual cruelty directed at her daughter shattered something in Gladys. 17 years of suppressed anger, disappointment, and betrayal crystallized into a single clarifying moment of rage. 3 quick strides brought her to Tiffany. The slap echoed across the ballroom like a gunshot. "Don't you dare speak to my daughter," Gladys said, her voice low but perfectly steady. "Don't you dare touch her." Tiffany's hand flew to her reddening cheek, her eyes wide with shock. The diamond necklace glinted mockingly in the chandelier light. "Gladys!" Hayes grabbed her arm. "Have you lost your mind?" She turned to him slowly, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time in years. "No, Hayes, I've finally found it." With deliberate movements, she removed his hand from her arm, turned, and walked toward Danielle. The crowd parted before her, faces blurring as she took her daughter's hand. "We're leaving," she said. As they reached the grand staircase, Gladys glanced back just once. Several guests had phones raised, recording the scene. By morning, her moment of public humiliation would be viral content. The thought should have terrified her, but instead, a strange calm settled over her. Let them watch. Let them see. The era of Gladys Kingston, dutiful wife, had just ended. The era of Gladys Kingston, architect of her own destiny, was about to begin. The morning after the disastrous anniversary party, Gladys woke in her daughter's bedroom, where she had slept after crying herself to exhaustion. Danielle was still asleep beside her, face peaceful in repose, seemingly unburdened by the previous night's events. Gladys reached for her phone on the nightstand and winced. 37 missed calls, 62 text messages, and her social media notifications had exploded. With trembling fingers, she opened the first video that had been shared to her profile. There she was, in her elegant green dress, slapping Tiffany Riker across the face. The video had already garnered over 50,000 views and was climbing rapidly. The comments section was a battleground, some condemning her for her public display, others cheering what they called her moment of justified rage. "Big Gladys Kingston slaps husband's mistress at their anniversary party," read one headline. "Wife's revenge. Seattle socialite causes scene at elite gathering," read another. Gladys set the phone down, her heart pounding. This was exactly what she had spent 17 years avoiding: public scandal, becoming fodder for gossip. And yet, as the initial shock faded, something unexpected took its place. Relief. The secret was out. The pretense was over. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Danielle, and made her way to the master bathroom. Hayes hadn't come home last night. The king-sized bed remained untouched on his side. She stood before the mirror, studying her reflection. Her makeup was smudged, her carefully styled hair now a disheveled mess. But her eyes, they were clearer than they had been in years. Gladys showered, dressed in a simple blouse and trousers, and went downstairs to make coffee. As the rich aroma filled the kitchen, she opened her laptop and began to search. By the time Danielle came downstairs, rubbing sleep from her eyes, Gladys had made 3 important phone calls and compiled a list of critical information. "Mom," Danielle approached cautiously. "Are you okay?" Gladys looked up from her laptop and smiled. A genuine smile this time. "No, sweetheart. Not yet, but I will be." She pulled out a chair for her daughter. "We need to talk about what happens next." Danielle sat, her young face solemn. "Dad hasn't come home, has he?" "No, and I don't think he will. At least not in the way things were before." "Good," Danielle said fiercely. After what he did, what she said, Gladys reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Danielle, I want you to know that whatever happens between your father and me, you are not to blame. And despite everything, he loves you." "Does he?" Danielle pulled her hand away. He humiliated you in front of everyone we know. He gave that woman the necklace you wanted. He did, Gladys acknowledged, and I'm not going to pretend that didn't hurt. But what happens next is about more than hurt feelings or revenge. It's about us, you and me, building a new life. What do you mean? Gladys turned her laptop to show Danielle the screen. I've been doing some research. Did you know that this house, the one we've lived in for 15 years, is actually part of my inheritance? It's in my name alone. Danielle's eyes widened. So Dad doesn't? No. And there's more. I've been checking our financials. When we married, I invested my inheritance in Hayes' business. We had an agreement. It was a loan, not a gift, with terms for repayment. He's been making minimum payments, but the bulk of that money is still legally mine. So, what are you going to do? Gladys closed the laptop. I've called Eliza Harrington, the divorce attorney. Danielle looked shocked. The one they call the executioner? Despite everything, Gladys laughed. That's the one. I have an appointment with her this afternoon. She hesitated, then added, I've also called a real estate agent. I'm putting the house on the market. We're moving? Danielle's voice was small. Eventually, yes, but not immediately. It will take time to sell a property of this size. Gladys squeezed her daughter's hand. I know this is a lot of change at once. Are you okay with all this? Danielle was quiet for a long moment. I think so, she finally said. I hate what Dad did to you. But he's still my dad, and he always will be, Gladys assured her. This isn't about erasing him from our lives. It's about moving forward with dignity. The doorbell rang, startling them both. Gladys checked her watch. It was barely 9 in the morning. Stay here, she told Danielle, rising from the table. When she opened the front door, Hayes stood on the threshold, still wearing his tuxedo from the night before, though it was now rumpled and stained. His eyes were bloodshot, his normally perfect hair disheveled. Gladys, he began, his voice hoarse, we need to talk. She regarded him coolly. Yes, we do, but not right now, and not like this. Please, he stepped forward. What happened last night? It wasn't what it looked like. It was exactly what it looked like, Hayes. You've been having an affair with Tiffany, and last night you decided to flaunt it at our anniversary party. The necklace was just a thank you gift for her work on the Winters account. Stop, Gladys held up a hand. Don't insult my intelligence, not anymore. Hayes's expression hardened. So what now? You're going to file for divorce because of one mistake? One? Gladys laughed softly. We both know it hasn't been just one. And yes, I have an appointment with Eliza Harrington this afternoon. The color drained from Hayes's face. Eliza? Jesus, Gladys, she'll crucify me. Perhaps you should have considered that possibility before you decided to humiliate me in front of our friends and colleagues. Where did you sleep last night? Danielle's voice came from behind Gladys. She turned to see her daughter standing in the hallway, arms crossed defensively over her chest. Hayes's expression softened. Danny, honey, was it with her? With Tiffany? Danielle, this is between your mother and me. No, it's not, Danielle cut in. Not when you do it in public. Not when everyone at school will have seen the videos by Monday. Hayes looked stricken. Videos? Gladys felt a flicker of satisfaction at his discomfort. Yes, Hayes, videos. Of me slapping your mistress. Of you giving her that diamond necklace on our anniversary. It's all over social media. My God, he muttered. The Winters deal. Of course. Even now, his first thought was for his business. You should go, Gladys said quietly. My lawyer will be in touch. Gladys, please. Goodbye, Hayes. She closed the door firmly in his face, then turned to find Danielle watching her with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. Are you really doing this, Mom? After all this time? Gladys nodded, a sense of purpose filling her that she hadn't felt in years. Yes, it's long overdue. She walked back to the kitchen, Danielle following close behind. As she picked up her coffee cup, now cold, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Gordon Winters, the very investor Hayes had been courting. Gladys answered, her voice steady. Mr. Winters, this is unexpected. Mrs. Kingston, Gordon's deep voice replied. I hope I'm not calling too early. Not at all. How can I help you? I was at your party last night, he said, somewhat unnecessarily, and I couldn't help but notice the situation. Gladys closed her eyes briefly. Yes, not my finest moment, I'm afraid. On the contrary, Gordon said, surprising her, I thought you showed remarkable restraint given the circumstances. In fact, I admired it. Thank you, she replied, unsure where this was heading. I understand you're the actual owner of that magnificent Tudor property. Gladys glanced at Danielle, who was watching the conversation intently. Yes, that's correct. I've always admired it. If you're ever considering selling, I'd be very interested in making an offer. Gladys's heart skipped a beat. As a matter of fact, Mr. Winters, I've just listed it this morning. There was a pause, then Gordon chuckled. Excellent timing, then. Would you be amenable to discussing terms, perhaps over lunch? I would indeed, Gladys replied, a plan forming in her mind. Shall we say 1 o'clock at Le Bernardin? Perfect. I look forward to it. As she ended the call, Danielle was staring at her with wide eyes. Mom, are you selling our house to the guy Dad was trying to get money from? Gladys allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. It appears I might be. For the first time since the disastrous party, Danielle grinned. That's kind of brilliant. Thank you, sweetheart. Gladys picked up her laptop again. Now let's look at some apartments in the city. I think it's time for a change of scenery, don't you? As they scrolled through listings together, Gladys felt something she hadn't experienced in years. The exhilarating freedom of taking control of her own destiny. Eliza Harrington's office exuded power and competence. Located on the 35th floor of a downtown Seattle skyscraper, its floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Puget Sound. The furnishings were sleek, modern, and undoubtedly expensive, much like Eliza herself. So, Eliza said, leaning back in her leather chair, fingers steepled under her chin, you want to divorce Hayes Kingston? It wasn't a question. Yes, Gladys confirmed, sitting ramrod straight in the visitor's chair. Good. Eliza's crimson lips curved into a smile that reminded Gladys of a predator. I've been waiting for this day. You have. Mrs. Kingston, may I call you Gladys? I've known your husband professionally for years. His reputation precedes him, both in business and in personal matters. Eliza tapped her manicured nails on the desk. You're not the first wife to sit in that chair because of Hayes Kingston. Gladys blinked in confusion. I don't understand. Before you, there was Patricia Kingston, Hayes' first wife. The revelation hit Gladys like a physical blow. First wife. Hayes told me he'd never been married before. He wouldn't, would he? Eliza opened a drawer and extracted a file. Patricia came to me 7 years before you married Hayes. Their divorce was contentious. She alleged financial impropriety, emotional abuse, and infidelity. I had no idea, Gladys whispered, her mind reeling. Another lie, another betrayal. Few people do. Hayes paid handsomely for discretion. Eliza slid the file across the desk. You should read this. It might inform your strategy moving forward. Gladys hesitated, then took the file, her fingers trembling slightly. Why are you showing me this? Eliza's expression softened fractionally. Because I believe in justice, Gladys. And because I couldn't help Patricia as effectively as I would have liked. Hayes was clever, and the laws were different then. But now? Her smile returned, sharper than before. Now I have you, and you have something Patricia didn't. What's that? Evidence, documentation, a paper trail. Eliza leaned forward. Tell me about your financial arrangements with Hayes. For the next hour, Gladys detailed the complex web of loans, investments, and agreements that had funded Hayes's rise to success. She produced documents, loan agreements, property deeds, investment records, all meticulously preserved despite Hayes's repeated suggestions that such paperwork was unnecessary between husband and wife. As she spoke, Eliza's expression grew increasingly satisfied. "This is even better than I hoped," she said when Gladys finished. "Hayes has been commingling funds, using your separate property for his business and failing to repay documented loans. With these records and the current state of Washington laws on division of property and divorce, we're in an extremely strong position." "What's our next step?" Gladys asked, feeling a growing sense of empowerment. "First," Eliza said, reaching for her phone, "we freeze all joint accounts immediately." "Can we do that?" "We absolutely can. It's a standard protective measure to prevent dissipation of assets during divorce proceedings." Eliza punched in a number. "Then we file for exclusive use of your house, which conveniently is already in your name alone. Hayes won't like that. Hayes doesn't have to like it. It's the law." Eliza spoke briefly to someone on the phone, authorizing immediate action on the accounts. "There. As of now, Hayes Kingston cannot access any joint funds without court approval." A wave of anxiety washed over Gladys. "He'll be furious." "Let him be," Eliza said dismissively. "His anger will only make him careless, and carelessness benefits us." She made another note. "Now, about your lunch with Gordon Winters. Tell me everything." Gladys described her conversation with the investor, including his interest in purchasing her house. "Brilliant," Eliza commented. "Winters is known for paying top dollar for properties he wants. If he buys your house, you'll have significant liquid assets completely separate from Hayes's business interests." "That's the plan," Gladys confirmed. "And how is your daughter handling all this?" The question, so different from their strategic discussion, caught Gladys off guard. "Danielle is processing. She's angry with her father, supportive of me, but understandably confused and hurt." Eliza nodded sympathetically. "Children often are the true victims in these situations." "Has Hayes attempted to contact her directly?" "Not yet, but I expect he will. When he does, document everything. Washington courts prioritize the best interests of the child, and any attempt to manipulate or pressure her will not be viewed favorably." As their meeting concluded, Eliza walked Gladys to the door. "One more thing," she said, her voice softening again. "The next few weeks will be difficult. Hayes will not surrender gracefully. He will use every weapon in his arsenal: emotional manipulation, financial pressure, mutual friends, even Danielle, to make you reconsider." "I understand. Do you?" Eliza's gaze was penetrating. "Because once we file these papers, there's no going back to the way things were. Even if you decided to reconcile, your marriage would never be the same. Are you prepared for that?" Gladys thought of the 17 years she had spent supporting Hayes, of her abandoned writing career, of the diamond necklace around Tiffany Riker's throat. She thought of Danielle's face when she confronted her father's mistress, brave and heartbroken all at once. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'm prepared." "Good." Eliza handed her a business card. "My personal cell is on the back. Call me anytime, day or night. And Gladys, remember that you're stronger than you think." With those words echoing in her mind, Gladys left the office and headed to her lunch meeting with Gordon Winters, a new sense of purpose in her step. Le Bernardin was exactly the kind of exclusive restaurant where business deals were made over expensive wine and perfectly cooked steaks. Gordon Winters, a tall man with silver hair and piercing blue eyes, stood as Gladys approached the table. "Mrs. Kingston," he greeted her, pulling out her chair. "Thank you for meeting me on such short notice." "Please, call me Gladys," she replied, taking her seat, "and thank you for reaching out." After they ordered, Gordon wasted no time getting to business. "I understand your house is now on the market. I'd like to make an offer." "I'm listening." Gordon named a figure that made Gladys momentarily forget to breathe. It was nearly double the property's estimated value. "That's extremely generous," she managed to say. Gordon smiled. "I've had my eye on that property for years. The location, the architecture, it's exactly what I've been looking for, and I'm prepared to close quickly, with minimal contingencies." May I ask why you're offering so much above market value? Gordon sipped his water, considering her question. Frankly, I like efficiency. I could negotiate, we could go back and forth, waste each other's time, or I could simply offer what I'm willing to pay and see if you accept. It was refreshingly straightforward, but Gladys sensed there was more. And? Gordon's smile widened. And perhaps I take some satisfaction in knowing that this transaction will complicate your husband's plans. His plans. Hayes has been courting me for months, seeking investment in his latest venture. After what I witnessed last night, I've decided to decline. This seems a more interesting investment opportunity. Gladys felt a surge of vindication. I see. Do we have a deal then? Gordon extended his hand across the table. Gladys hesitated only briefly before shaking it firmly. We do, Mr. Winters. My real estate agent will draw up the paperwork this afternoon. Excellent. Gordon raised his wine glass to new beginnings. As they clinked glasses, Gladys's phone vibrated with an incoming call. Hayes. She silenced it without a second thought. By the time she returned home that afternoon, her life had changed irrevocably. The joint accounts were frozen, the house sale was in process, and divorce papers were being prepared. She found Danielle in the kitchen, making a sandwich. How did it go? Her daughter asked. Better than expected, Gladys replied, setting down her purse. Mr. Winters is buying the house. For how much? Gladys told her. Danielle's jaw dropped. That's crazy money. Yes, it is. Gladys smiled. Enough to buy us a beautiful apartment downtown, fund your college education, and give me some capital to invest. Danielle set down her knife. What about Dad? Where will he go? As if summoned by the question, the front door burst open. Hayes stormed in, his face contorted with rage. What the hell have you done? He demanded, advancing on Gladys. The accounts are frozen. My credit cards are declined. Even my business line of credit is on hold. Gladys stood her ground. I've taken steps to protect our assets during the divorce proceedings. It's standard practice. Divorce? Hayes' voice rose. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for you? For me? Gladys laughed incredulously. You've spent 17 years building your empire with my money, Hayes. You've been unfaithful, dishonest, and just last night, you humiliated me in front of everyone we know. One mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. Gladys crossed her arms. And it ends now. Hayes turned to Danielle, his expression softening. Danny, sweetheart, your mother isn't thinking clearly. She's upset about last night, understandably so, but this... Don't, Danielle interrupted, her young face set in lines of determination. Don't try to use me against Mom. I would never. You already are. Danielle pushed past him and went to stand beside Gladys. I saw what you did. Everyone saw. Hayes' face darkened. This isn't over, Gladys. Not by a long shot. Actually, she replied calmly, it is. I've sold the house. You what? Hayes' voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. I sold it. To Gordon Winters. We close in 2 weeks. The color drained from Hayes' face. Winters? My investor? Former investor, I believe. Gladys kept her voice steady. He made a very generous offer. Hayes' composure cracked entirely. You vindictive bitch. You can't do this. I already have. Gladys nodded toward the door. Now I think you should leave before you say something you'll regret in front of the divorce court. This is my house too. No, Hayes, it isn't. It's in my name alone, as you well know. And as of today, it legally belongs to Gordon Winters, pending closing procedures. Hayes looked from Gladys to Danielle, clearly searching for a weakness, an opening. Finding none, he snatched a crystal vase from the hallway table and hurled it against the wall. It shattered spectacularly, water and flowers spreading across the hardwood floor. You'll regret this, he hissed, before storming out, slamming the door behind him with such force that a picture fell from the wall. In the sudden silence, Gladys and Danielle stood side by side, staring at the mess. Are you okay? Gladys asked softly. Danielle nodded, though her hands were trembling. Yeah, that was intense. It was. Gladys put an arm around her daughter's shoulders. And I'm afraid it's just the beginning. Your father won't give up easily. Neither will we, Danielle said with unexpected fierceness. As they cleaned up the broken glass together, Gladys felt a strange mix of sorrow and determination. The marriage she had invested 17 years in was over, but something new was being born from its ashes, a stronger version of herself, a closer relationship with her daughter, and the chance to reclaim the dreams she had set aside for too long. The news of Gladys Kingston slapping her husband's mistress at their anniversary party spread through Seattle's social circles like wildfire. The video went viral, spawning memes, think pieces, and heated debates about public shaming, infidelity, and women's empowerment. Tiffany Riker was the first casualty of the scandal. The Monday following the party, she arrived at work to find her access card deactivated and a security guard waiting to escort her to HR. Her boss, who had been a guest at the party, cited conduct unbecoming a company representative as grounds for immediate termination. By Wednesday, Gladys and Danielle had moved into a luxurious furnished apartment overlooking Elliott Bay while awaiting the close of escrow on their house. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the water, ferries cutting white paths across the blue expanse. It's smaller than our house, Danielle observed as they unpacked essential items, but I kind of like it better. So do I, Gladys admitted, arranging a vase of fresh flowers on the dining table. It feels like a fresh start. Her phone chimed with a text message. It was from Casey Palmer, her old college roommate, and one of the few friends who had reached out supportively after the party incident. Have you seen this? Casey had written, attaching a link. Gladys clicked it to find a local news article. Kingston Investments under investigation following domestic dispute. The piece detailed how Hayes' company was facing scrutiny from investors and regulatory bodies after questions arose about the source of its initial funding. "Mom," Danielle called from the kitchen, "someone's at the door." Gladys set down her phone and went to answer it. Through the peephole, she saw Tiffany Riker standing in the hallway, looking considerably less polished than she had at the party. Her designer clothes had been replaced by jeans and a simple blouse, and her makeup couldn't quite conceal the dark circles under her eyes. For a moment, Gladys considered ignoring her, but curiosity won out. She opened the door, keeping her expression neutral. "Ms. Riker, this is unexpected." Tiffany shifted uncomfortably. "Can I come in? Please? It's important." Against her better judgment, Gladys stepped aside. 5 minutes. As Tiffany entered, Danielle emerged from the kitchen, a look of outrage crossing her face. "What is she doing here?" "It's all right, Danielle," Gladys said calmly. "Ms. Riker and I are going to have a brief conversation. Would you mind giving us some privacy?" Danielle hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "I'll be in my room. Call if you need me." She shot Tiffany a venomous look before disappearing down the hallway. "Your daughter hates me," Tiffany observed. "Can you blame her?" Gladys gestured toward the sofa. "Please sit and explain why you're here." Tiffany perched on the edge of the couch, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. "I lost my job because of what happened at your party." "I'm aware," Gladys replied, taking a seat across from her. "Though I'd argue you lost your job because of your own choices, not because of any action I took." "That's fair," Tiffany conceded, surprising Gladys. "But there's more. I can't find work anywhere in Seattle. Every firm I apply to has seen the video. I'm blacklisted. Again, consequences of your actions. Is there a point to this visit, Ms. Riker? Because if you're looking for sympathy—" "I'm not," Tiffany interrupted. "I'm here to offer you information." Gladys raised an eyebrow. "What kind of information?" "About Hayes, about his business practices, his offshore accounts, the ways he's been hiding assets from you and from the IRS." This was unexpected. Gladys studied the younger woman carefully, looking for signs of deception. "Why would you betray Hayes's confidence?" "I was under the impression you two were—" close." Tiffany laughed bitterly. "We were, until he dumped me the morning after your party, blamed me for the scandal, and cut off all contact. Apparently I was just convenient. Someone to boost his ego and warm his bed while he negotiated the winter's deal." She reached into her handbag and extracted a flash drive. "Everything's on here. Financial records, emails, calendar entries documenting meetings with offshore bankers. Enough to give your divorce attorney a significant advantage." Gladys made no move to take the drive. "And what do you want in exchange?" "A job recommendation," Tiffany said bluntly. "I need to leave Seattle, start fresh somewhere else. With your connections in the publishing world, you could help me." My connections?" Gladys was genuinely confused. "I haven't been in publishing for 17 years. "That's not what Hayes told me," Tiffany replied, equally confused. "He said you maintained your industry contacts, that you advised publishing houses on acquisitions, that you were still writing secretly." Gladys felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. "He said what?" "He told me you were a successful author publishing under a pen name, that you had connections throughout the industry." Tiffany's brow furrowed. "He said that's why you were always so busy, why you traveled to New York so often." A cold realization dawned on Gladys. "I haven't been to New York in 5 years, Ms. Riker, and I certainly haven't been writing or publishing secretly." But the trips." "What trips exactly?" Tiffany pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, and showed Gladys a calendar. "These. Hayes said you were at publishing conferences, meeting with your agent." Gladys stared at the dates, at least a dozen over the past year alone, when Hayes had told her he was on business trips. The betrayal cut deeper than she had imagined. Not only had he been unfaithful, but he had constructed an elaborate fiction about Gladys's own life to justify his absences. "He was with you on these dates," Gladys said flatly. It wasn't a question. Tiffany nodded, having the grace to look uncomfortable. "Yes, usually at the Four Seasons. He told me you knew that you had an arrangement." "There was no arrangement." Gladys's voice was ice, just a web of lies. She took the flash drive from Tiffany's outstretched hand. "I can't promise you a job recommendation. I truly don't have those connections. But I can promise that this information will be put to good use." Tiffany stood, adjusting her handbag strap. "That's fair. I didn't expect much." She hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, but for what I said to your daughter at the party. It was cruel and unnecessary." "Yes, it was," Gladys agreed. "But I appreciate the apology." As she showed Tiffany to the door, a thought occurred to her. "The necklace," she said. "The diamond pendant Hayes gave you. Do you still have it?" Tiffany's hand went instinctively to her throat. "No, Hayes took it back the morning after the party, said it was company property, purchased with corporate funds for a client gift." Of course he had. Another lie in a tapestry of deception. After Tiffany left, Gladys sat alone in the living room, turning the flash drive over in her hands. She should call Eliza immediately, share this potential goldmine of evidence. But something held her back, a need to process what she had just learned. Hayes hadn't merely betrayed her with another woman. He had stolen her identity, her dreams, crafting a fictional version of her life to serve his own purposes. It was a violation more intimate than infidelity, this appropriation of her deepest aspirations. "Is she gone?" Danielle asked, emerging cautiously from her room. "Yes," Gladys said, quickly wiping away a tear. "She brought us some information that might help with the divorce." Danielle sat beside her mother. "What kind of information?" "Financial records, mostly." Gladys decided to shield her daughter from the full extent of Hayes's deception. "It seems your father has been less than transparent about his business dealings." "Are you okay, Mom? You look upset." Gladys managed a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just processing everything." But later that night, after Danielle had gone to bed, Gladys sat at her new desk overlooking the twinkling lights of the Seattle waterfront and opened her laptop. She inserted Tiffany's flash drive and began methodically reviewing its contents. What she found was even worse than she had anticipated. Hayes had not merely hidden assets, he had systematically diverted funds, created shell companies, and established offshore accounts to shield money from both taxation and marital property laws. The evidence was comprehensive and damning. With trembling fingers, she forwarded the most critical files to Eliza Harrington, then composed a brief email explaining their source. Eliza's response came within minutes, despite the late hour. "This changes everything. Do not delete anything. Do not contact Hayes. Meet me in my office tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp." Gladys closed her laptop and moved to the window, staring out at the city lights. 17 years of marriage, and she had never truly known the man she had shared a bed with. The thought should have devastated her, but instead she felt an odd sense of liberation. The next morning, Eliza's office buzzed with a tension Gladys hadn't felt during their previous meeting. 2 associates had joined them, along with a forensic accountant who peered intently at the files from Tiffany's flash drive. "This is extraordinary," Eliza said, after the accountant had presented his preliminary findings. "Hayes hasn't just been hiding assets from you, Gladys. He's been engaging in what appears to be systematic tax fraud." "What does that mean for our case?" Gladys asked. "It means we have significant leverage," Eliza replied, a predatory smile spreading across her face. "Hayes now faces a choice: settle with you generously and quietly, or risk exposure not just to the divorce court, but to the IRS and possibly federal prosecutors." "I don't want to blackmail him," Gladys said, uncomfortable with the implication. "This isn't blackmail," Eliza assured her. "It's negotiation from a position of strength. We're not threatening to report him if he doesn't settle. We're offering him a chance to resolve the divorce quickly and privately, which happens to be in his best interest given these discoveries." The accountant cleared his throat. "There's something else you should see," he said, turning his laptop toward Gladys. "This document suggests that Kingston has been transferring substantial funds to an account in the Cayman Islands over the past 6 months. The timing corresponds with the deterioration of his company's financial position. He's preparing for bankruptcy," Eliza concluded, "moving assets offshore before his creditors can reach them." "Is that legal?" Gladys asked. "Not remotely," the accountant confirmed. "It's classic bankruptcy fraud." Eliza leaned forward. "Gladys, this information gives us extraordinary leverage, but it also presents a moral dilemma. These documents suggest criminal activity. As officers of the court, we have certain ethical obligations." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying we need to move quickly. We contact Hayes today, present our evidence, and offer settlement terms that are favorable to you, but not punitive to him. If he agrees, we proceed with a quick, quiet divorce. If he refuses," Eliza shrugged eloquently. "And if I don't want to offer him this chance?" Gladys asked, surprised by the hardness in her own voice. "After what he's done?" Eliza studied her carefully. "That's your decision. But consider this. A protracted legal battle will be public, messy, and potentially devastating for Danielle. A quick settlement gives you both the chance to move forward with dignity." Gladys thought of her daughter, of the pain already etched on her young face. "You're right. Let's offer the settlement." Hayes arrived at Eliza's office that afternoon, accompanied by his own attorney, a nervous-looking man who seemed overwhelmed by the situation. Hayes himself looked haggard, his normally immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. The cocky businessman Gladys had watched charm a ballroom full of people just days earlier had been replaced by a man on the edge. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Kingston," Eliza began, her tone professionally neutral. "We've asked you here to discuss settlement terms for your divorce." "I haven't agreed to a divorce," Hayes snapped. "That's not actually up to you," Eliza replied coolly, "but the terms of the divorce very much are. We're prepared to offer you an opportunity to resolve this matter quickly and discreetly." She slid a document across the table. Hayes's attorney picked it up, scanned it, and visibly paled. "Where did you get this information?" he demanded. "That's irrelevant," Eliza said. "What matters is that we have it, and we're prepared to use it if necessary." Hayes snatched the document from his attorney, his face darkening as he read, "This is blackmail." "No, Mr. Kingston, this is evidence of potentially criminal financial activity," Eliza corrected him. "Evidence that we are not obligated to keep confidential if this matter proceeds to litigation." Hayes turned to Gladys, his expression a mixture of rage and disbelief. "You would do this to me? After everything we've been through together?" Gladys met his gaze steadily. "I'm offering you a way out, Hayes, a clean break. All I want is what's legally mine, plus fair compensation for Danielle's future." "And what about my future?" he demanded. "You're taking everything, the house, the money, our daughter." "I'm not taking Danielle from you," Gladys said quietly. "But you need to understand that your actions have consequences. She saw what happened at the party. She knows about Tiffany. Trust has been broken, and it will take time to rebuild." Hayes' attorney placed a restraining hand on his client's arm. "Perhaps we should discuss the terms privately," he suggested. "That would be wise," Eliza agreed. As Hayes and his attorney stepped out to confer, Gladys found herself unexpectedly calm. Whatever happened next, she had already won the most important battle, the one for her self-respect. 20 minutes later, Hayes returned to the conference room alone, his face a mask of controlled anger. "I'll sign your agreement," he said flatly, "on one condition." "We're not really in a position to negotiate," Eliza began, but Gladys raised a hand to silence her. "What condition, Hayes?" "I want to see Danielle, regularly. Not supervised visits, not restricted access. I want to be part of her life." It was the last thing Gladys had expected. Not demands about money or property, but concern for his relationship with their daughter. Perhaps there was still a shred of the man she had once loved beneath the lies and betrayal. "That was never in question," she said softly. "Danielle needs her father despite everything, but it has to be on her terms, Hayes. You hurt her deeply. It will take time to heal that wound." For a moment, Hayes's facade cracked, revealing genuine pain. "I never meant to hurt her," he said. "You, maybe, but never Danny." "Intent doesn't change the outcome," Gladys replied, "but I believe you can repair your relationship with her, if you're willing to put in the work." Hayes nodded slowly, then turned to Eliza. "Where do I sign?" As Hayes scrawled his signature across the settlement documents, Gladys felt a chapter of her life closing definitively. 17 years of marriage, ending with the stroke of a pen. It should have felt momentous, earth-shattering. Instead, it felt like setting down a heavy burden she had carried for too long. Outside the law office, as they waited for separate elevators, Hayes turned to her one last time. "Was any of it real?" he asked, his voice uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Us. Our marriage. Did you ever love me?" Gladys considered the question carefully. "Yes," she finally said. "I loved you, and I think in your way you loved me too. But love without respect, without honesty, it isn't enough, Hayes." The elevator arrived with a soft chime. Hayes stepped inside, then held the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Not just for Tiffany, but for everything." "I know," Gladys said, and surprisingly, she found that she did. As his elevator doors closed, Gladys felt a sense of closure wash over her. The confrontation she had dreaded had come and gone, leaving in its wake not devastation but possibility. Whatever came next, she would face it on her own terms. The fall rain tapped gently against the windows of Gladys's new apartment as she sat cross-legged on her bed, surrounded by stacks of notepaper and an open laptop. 3 months had passed since the divorce was finalized, and life had settled into a new rhythm. The proceeds from the house sale had been invested wisely with Eliza Harrington's guidance. Gladys now owned several small commercial properties that generated steady rental income, providing financial security without the need to return to the workforce immediately. This freedom had given her the space to rediscover her first love, writing. For weeks, she had been working on a novel, not the abandoned manuscript from her youth, but something new, born from her recent experiences. A story about betrayal, resilience, and reinvention. A soft knock at her bedroom door interrupted her concentration. "Mom?" Danielle called. "Can I come in?" "Of course, sweetheart." Danielle entered, dressed for her weekly dinner with Hayes. These outings had been awkward at first, but gradually, father and daughter were rebuilding their relationship. Hayes, to his credit, had been making genuine efforts, attending Danielle's school events, respecting boundaries, and most importantly, listening when she expressed her feelings about his betrayal. "How do I look?" Danielle asked, twirling to show off her new dress. "Beautiful," Gladys replied honestly. "Where's your dad taking you tonight?" "That new Italian place on Pike Street. He said he has something important to tell me." Danielle bit her lip nervously. "I think he might be seeing someone." Gladys set aside her laptop. "How would you feel about that?" "I don't know," Danielle admitted. "Not Tiffany, obviously. That would be... ugh. But someone new? I guess it's inevitable, right?" "Eventually, yes." Gladys patted the bed beside her. "Come sit for a minute." Danielle perched on the edge of the mattress. At 15, she was already showing signs of the woman she would become. Thoughtful, perceptive, with an emotional intelligence that sometimes surprised Gladys. "Your father and I have both moved on to new chapters in our lives," Gladys said carefully. "That doesn't change how either of us feels about you. And it doesn't erase the family we were, even if we're configured differently now." "I know that, logically," Danielle sighed. "It's just weird to think about Dad with someone else. Almost as weird as thinking about you dating again." Gladys laughed. "Is that so hard to imagine?" "Kind of, yeah." Danielle grinned. "You've been so focused on your writing and the property business. Casey keeps saying she wants to set you up with her brother, but you always change the subject." "Casey should mind her own romantic life," Gladys said, though without heat. Her old college roommate had indeed been making none too subtle attempts at matchmaking lately. "Would it be so terrible," Danielle asked, "to date again?" Gladys considered the question. "Not terrible, no, just not a priority right now. I'm enjoying rediscovering who I am outside of a relationship. Does that make sense?" "Yeah, it does." Danielle glanced at the manuscript pages scattered across the bed. "How's the book coming?" "Slowly but surely. My editor thinks it has potential." This was an understatement. The partial manuscript Gladys had tentatively submitted to a publishing contact of Casey's had generated significant interest. 3 publishing houses were now competing for the rights, attracted by the raw authenticity of Gladys's voice and the timeliness of her subject matter. The doorbell rang, signaling Hayes' arrival. Danielle jumped up. "That's Dad, I should go." "Have fun," Gladys said, giving her daughter a quick hug. "Text me if you'll be later than 10. After Danielle left, Gladys returned to her manuscript, but found her concentration broken. Her conversation with her daughter had stirred something, a recognition that while she was genuinely content with her newly independent life, there remained unexplored possibilities. Her phone chimed with a text from Casey. "Robert's in town next weekend. Dinner? The 4 of us." Robert was Casey's perpetually single brother, successful, intelligent, and by all accounts a decent man. Gladys had been deflecting Casey's attempts to introduce them for months. Before she could overthink it, she typed a response. "Why not? Send details." Setting down her phone, she turned back to her manuscript with renewed focus. The protagonist of her novel, a woman rebuilding her life after betrayal, was at a similar crossroads, poised between the comfort of self-sufficiency and the risk of new connections. "Perhaps," Gladys murmured as she began to type, "it's time for both of us to be brave in a different way." The following Wednesday, Gladys met with her literary agent, a relationship that still felt surreal after so many years of suppressing her creative ambitions. Over lunch at a quiet cafe overlooking the waterfront, they discussed the competing offers for her book. "Berkeley is offering the most money," the agent Maria Chen explained. But Riverhead is proposing a 2-book deal with a smaller advance. And then there's HarperCollins, offering something in between plus significant marketing support. What would you recommend? Gladys asked, still adjusting to the idea that major publishing houses were fighting over her work. Maria considered. Honestly, I'd go with Riverhead. The editor there really gets your voice, and the 2-book deal gives you security and time to develop the second manuscript without pressure. Then that's what we'll do, Gladys decided. The money was secondary. What mattered was finding the right home for her story. As they finished their lunch, Maria asked, "Have you thought about what happens when the book comes out? There will be publicity, interviews. Given the autobiographical elements, people will make connections to your personal life." Gladys had indeed considered this. Her novel, while fiction, drew heavily from her experiences with Hayes. "I'm prepared for that," she said. "I've spent too many years being silent, Maria. I'm ready to use my voice." "Good," Maria smiled, "because your voice is exactly what makes this book special." Walking back to her apartment after the meeting, Gladys felt a profound sense of rightness. The path ahead, as a writer, as a single mother, as a woman redefining herself, was uncertain in many ways. But for the first time in decades, it was truly hers to navigate. At home, she found an email from Gordon Winters, the investor who had purchased her house. He was hosting a charity gala the following month and hoped she would attend as his guest. "Your ex-husband will not be present," he added wryly. "I've made sure of that." Gladys smiled at the computer screen. Gordon had been unexpectedly supportive during the divorce proceedings, not just as a business associate, but as someone who seemed to genuinely respect her resilience. Their interactions had been strictly professional, but she had occasionally wondered if there might be potential for more. Before she could compose a reply, her phone rang. It was Danielle, calling from school. "Mom," her voice was thick with tears, "can you come get me? Something happened." "I'll be right there," Gladys said, already reaching for her car keys. "Are you hurt?" "No, not physically. It's just..." Danielle's voice broke. "Some girls at school saw a TikTok about you and Dad. They've been saying things, horrible things." Gladys's heart sank. Despite their best efforts to shield Danielle from the social media fallout of the divorce, it was perhaps inevitable that it would eventually reach her. 20 minutes later, Gladys found her daughter huddled in the school nurse's office, eyes red from crying. On the drive home, Danielle explained what had happened. A group of classmates had discovered old video clips from the anniversary party, along with cruel commentary about Gladys being a psycho ex-wife and Hayes a victim of gold digging. "It's so unfair," Danielle said angrily. "They don't know anything about what really happened." "No, they don't," Gladys agreed, navigating through afternoon traffic. "People judge based on snippets, on moments captured out of context. But we know the truth, Danny, and that's what matters." "Dad's reputation is completely fine," Danielle continued bitterly. "No one at his office treats him differently, but you slap someone one time and suddenly you're branded forever." Gladys couldn't help but laugh at her daughter's indignation. "Welcome to the double standard, sweetheart. Men are allowed to be aggressive in defense of their interests. Women are expected to accept mistreatment gracefully." "It's bullshit," Danielle declared, then immediately looked contrite. "Sorry." "No, you're right. It is." Gladys reached over to squeeze her daughter's hand. "But you know what? I wouldn't change what I did. Not because violence is the answer, it isn't, but because standing up for yourself and the people you love is always the right choice, even when it comes with consequences." Back at the apartment, they made hot chocolate and sat on the balcony, watching ferries crisscross the bay. Danielle seemed calmer now, the teenage drama of the day receding in importance. "I told Dad about what happened at school," she admitted. "He was really upset, said he'd talk to the principal." "That's good of him," Gladys acknowledged. "He also said he's proud of how you've handled everything." Danielle glanced sideways at her mother. "He said you could have destroyed him with what you knew about his business, but you didn't. Gladys was surprised. Hayes had never directly acknowledged her restraint during the divorce proceedings. "Your father and I have our differences," she said carefully, "but we both want what's best for you." "He's dating his physical therapist," Danielle blurted out. "That's what he told me at dinner the other night. Her name is Eleanor. She's nice, actually. Not at all like Tiffany." "I'm glad," Gladys said, and found that she meant it. Hayes moving on romantically meant less chance of him attempting reconciliation, which would only complicate their carefully reconstructed family dynamic. "Would it be weird if he brought her to my birthday dinner next month?" Danielle asked hesitantly. Gladys considered. "Maybe a little at first, but we're all adults. If she makes your dad happy and she's good to you, then I can certainly be civil." Danielle looked relieved. "Thanks, Mom. And what about you? Casey said you finally agreed to meet her brother." "News travels fast," Gladys observed dryly. "Yes, I'm having dinner with Casey and Robert this weekend. It's not a big deal." "It kind of is, though," Danielle persisted. "It's your first date since Dad." "It's not a date," Gladys protested. "It's dinner with my friend and her brother." "Uh-huh." Danielle's skepticism was evident. "What are you wearing?" Gladys realized with a start that she hadn't even thought about it. "I have no idea," she admitted. "I suppose I should figure that out." "We should go shopping," Danielle suggested, suddenly animated. "Get you something new. Something that says, 'I'm a successful author and businesswoman who doesn't need a man, but wouldn't mind the company of the right one.'" Gladys laughed. "That's quite a specific message for an outfit to convey." "Trust me," Danielle said, with the infinite confidence of a 15-year-old, "I know exactly what you need." And so, in a reversal of their usual roles, Gladys allowed her daughter to guide her through boutiques and department stores, trying on outfits she would never have selected herself. It was the most fun she'd had in months, this frivolous afternoon of fashion and laughter. By the time Saturday evening arrived, Gladys found herself genuinely looking forward to dinner. The woman who stared back at her from the mirror seemed both familiar and new, dressed in a simple but elegant navy dress that Danielle had insisted brought out her eyes, her hair loose around her shoulders instead of in her usual practical updo. "You look beautiful, Mom," Danielle said from the doorway. "Robert won't know what hit him." "It's not about Robert," Gladys reminded her. "It's about me taking steps to expand my social circle." "Whatever you say," Danielle replied with an exaggerated wink. The dinner itself was surprisingly enjoyable. Robert Chen was nothing like Hayes. Quieter, more thoughtful, with a dry wit that matched Gladys' own. As a pediatric surgeon, he spoke passionately about his work while showing genuine interest in Gladys' writing and real estate ventures. "Casey tells me you're quite the phoenix story," he said over dessert, after his sister and her husband had excused themselves to speak with friends at another table. "Rising from the ashes of a difficult situation," Gladys smiled. "That's a bit dramatic, but not entirely inaccurate. The past year has been transformative." "I admire that," Robert said simply. "Resilience is an underrated quality." Their conversation flowed easily, touching on books, travel, and the challenges of parenting. Robert had a 10-year-old son from his previous marriage. By the time the evening ended, Gladys found herself agreeing to a proper date the following weekend, just the two of them. As Casey drove her home, her friend was practically bouncing with excitement. "I knew you two would hit it off. Didn't I tell you?" "Yes, you did," Gladys acknowledged. "Though I'm not sure one pleasant dinner constitutes hitting it off." "Please," Casey scoffed. "I saw how he looked at you. And you agreed to see him again, which is huge progress from where you were 3 months ago." Gladys couldn't argue with that. 3 months ago, the idea of dating had seemed not just unappealing, but almost impossible to imagine. Now, it felt like a natural step in her ongoing evolution. When she arrived home, she found Danielle waiting up for her, eager for details. "So, how was it? Is he nice? Are you seeing him again?" "Yes to all 3 questions," Gladys replied, slipping off her heels with a sigh of relief. "But it's early days, Danny. Don't start planning a wedding just yet." As if, Danielle rolled her eyes. I just want you to be happy, Mom. You deserve it after everything. Gladys hugged her daughter tightly. I am happy, sweetheart. Happier than I've been in a long time. And that's because of you. My writing, this new life we're building, not because of any man, past or potential. Later, as she prepared for bed, Gladys noticed Gordon Winters' email was still awaiting a response. After a moment's consideration, she typed a brief reply. Thank you for the invitation. I would be delighted to attend. Her social calendar, once dictated by Hayes's business obligations, was now filling with engagements of her own choosing. It was yet another small but significant marker of her transformation from supporting character to protagonist in her own life. As she drifted off to sleep, Gladys reflected on the journey of the past year, from the humiliation of the anniversary party to the hard-won freedom of the present. The path had been painful, but the destination was proving worth every difficult step. 1 year to the day after the infamous anniversary party, Gladys Kingston stood in the elegant reception hall of Seattle's Central Library, surrounded by well-wishers. The launch event for her debut novel, The Price of Loyalty, had drawn a capacity crowd. Literary figures, local media, and friends both old and new. The book, a fictionalized account of a woman's journey from betrayal to empowerment, had garnered early praise from critics for its unflinching honesty and emotional resonance. Advance sales were strong, and there was already talk of a film adaptation. I still can't believe this is happening, Gladys confided to Casey, who had appointed herself unofficial event coordinator for the evening. Believe it, Casey replied, straightening the stack of books on the signing table. You earned this, Gladys, every bit of it. Across the room, Danielle was chatting animatedly with Robert Chen, who had become a steady presence in their lives over the past 9 months. Their relationship had developed slowly, respectfully, with both parties mindful of past hurts and the complexities of blended families. Robert's son Max had initially been wary of Gladys, but their shared love of fantasy novels had eventually provided common ground. Gordon Winters approached, champagne flute in hand. Congratulations, Gladys. The reviews are spectacular. Thank you, Gordon, and thank you for coming. I know how busy you are. I wouldn't have missed it, he said warmly. Your story is inspiring, both the fictional one and the real one. He gestured around the room. All of this built from the ashes of what could have been a devastating setback. I had help, Gladys acknowledged. Good friends, a supportive daughter, excellent legal counsel. Don't diminish your own role, Gordon chided gently. You were the architect of this transformation. Others may have provided tools or support, but the vision and execution were yours alone. Before Gladys could respond, a murmur swept through the crowd. She turned to see Hayes Kingston entering the reception hall, elegant as always, in a perfectly tailored suit. Beside him was a woman Gladys recognized from photos Danielle had shown her. Eleanor, the physical therapist, now Hayes' fiancée. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, anticipating drama, but Gladys felt only a calm curiosity. What had brought Hayes here? To the celebration of a book that, while fictionalized, clearly drew inspiration from their failed marriage. Hayes approached her directly, his expression unreadable. Gladys, you look well. Thank you, Hayes. So do you. She nodded to his companion. You must be Eleanor. Danielle speaks highly of you. Eleanor, a tall woman with kind eyes, seemed relieved at the cordial greeting. It's lovely to meet you finally, and congratulations on your book. I pre-ordered a copy. That's very kind of you, Gladys replied, genuinely touched by the gesture. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. I hope our presence doesn't disrupt your evening. Danielle mentioned the launch, and I thought... He trailed off, seemingly unsure how to complete the sentence. You're welcome here, Gladys assured him, surprising herself with the sincerity of the statement. Danielle will be happy to see you both. As if summoned by her name, Danielle appeared at Gladys's side. Dad, Eleanor, you came. She hugged them both, her genuine pleasure evident. Wouldn't miss my daughter's big night, Hayes said, ruffling her hair affectionately. Supporting the debut of a future literary star's mother is the least I can do. Danielle beamed. Mum's the star tonight. You should see the line forming for the signing. Indeed, a queue was beginning to form near the table, stacked with copies of The Price of Loyalty. Casey caught Gladys's eye and pointed meaningfully at her watch. I should get started, Gladys said. Please, enjoy the reception. There's plenty of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. As she made her way to the signing table, Robert appeared at her side. Are you okay? He asked quietly. That must have been unexpected. Surprisingly, yes, Gladys replied. A year ago, seeing Hayes would have triggered anger, hurt, resentment. Now, it's like watching a scene from someone else's life. Robert squeezed her hand. That's called healing, and you've done it with remarkable grace. For the next hour, Gladys signed books and chatted with readers, many of whom shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery. Some had followed her journey through the media coverage of the divorce. Others were drawn to the book's premise without knowing its autobiographical underpinnings. Your words gave me courage, one woman whispered as Gladys signed her copy. I left my husband last month after 15 years of emotional abuse. Your story showed me it wasn't too late to start over. Such moments humbled Gladys, reminding her that personal pain, transformed through art, could become a beacon for others navigating similar darkness. As the event wound down, Gladys found herself momentarily alone, taking a breather in a quiet corner of the reception hall. Hayes approached, holding a signed copy of her novel. I bought one, he said, almost apologetically. I hope that's okay. Of course, Gladys replied. Though I should warn you, the character of the unfaithful husband doesn't come off particularly well. Hayes smiled ruefully. I assumed as much. I probably deserve worse. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. I never congratulated you properly, Hayes finally said. On the book, on everything you've accomplished this past year. Thank you, Gladys said simply. I was wrong about so many things, Hayes continued, his voice low. But especially about your writing. You're talented, Gladys. You always were. I should have supported that dream instead of asking you to set it aside. The admission, so long in coming, struck Gladys with unexpected force. Why didn't you? She asked. Why wasn't there room for both our ambitions? Hayes considered the question with uncharacteristic thoughtfulness. Insecurity, I suppose. Your talent was innate. Mine was constructed, built on connections, on charm, on your financial support. Deep down, I think I feared that if you pursued your writing, you'd realize you didn't need me. Deep down, I think I feared that if you pursued your writing, you'd realize you didn't need me. The honesty of his answer surprised her. You're probably right, Gladys acknowledged, though it took me far too long to realize that on my own. For what it's worth, Hayes said, I'm proud of what you've become, what you've made of your life after everything I put you through. Gladys studied his face, searching for signs of the manipulation that had once been his reflexive approach to emotional conversations. Finding none, she nodded slowly. Thank you for saying that. It matters, especially for Danielle's sake. She's thriving, Hayes observed, glancing across the room to where their daughter stood chatting animatedly with a group of young people. You've done an amazing job with her through all of this. We both have, Gladys corrected him. Despite everything else, you've been present for her this past year. I appreciate that. A comfortable silence fell between them. Not the loaded, tense silences of their final years together, but something more peaceful. The silence of two people who had moved beyond anger to something like acceptance. Eleanor seems lovely, Gladys offered. Danielle speaks very highly of her. She is, Hayes agreed, his expression softening. She sees through my bullshit in a way that, he hesitated, in a way that you eventually did, but much earlier in the relationship. It's healthier. I'm glad, Gladys said, and found she meant it. Hayes' happiness with another woman no longer threatened her own sense of worth or stability. Hayes gestured toward Robert, who was helping Casey pack up the remaining books. "And your doctor? He treats you well?" "He does. But more importantly, I treat myself well now." Gladys smiled. "Robert is a part of my life, but he's not the center of it. That's the difference." Hayes nodded thoughtfully. "I'm learning that lesson with Eleanor. Slowly, but I'm learning." Casey approached, apologetically interrupting their conversation. "Sorry, Gladys, but the librarian says we need to wrap up soon. There are a few people who still want books signed." "Of course," Gladys turned back to Hayes. "Duty calls." "It was good to talk," Hayes said, extending his hand formally. "Really talk, I mean, without lawyers or anger between us." Gladys shook his hand, the gesture both an ending and a beginning. Yes, it was. As Hayes walked away to rejoin Eleanor, Gladys felt a sense of closure that no legal document could have provided. The chapters of her life with Hayes were definitively ended now, not with bitterness, but with a mutual recognition of both what had been lost and what had been gained through that loss. The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and well wishes. By the time the last guest departed, Gladys was exhausted but exhilarated. Her cheeks sore from smiling, her right hand cramped from signing books. "What a night," Casey sighed, collapsing into a chair beside Gladys. "You're officially a literary sensation." "Hardly," Gladys laughed, "but it was a wonderful launch. Thank you for everything you did to make it happen." "Are you kidding? This is just the beginning. Wait until the sales figures come in, the reviews start piling up. You're going to be everywhere, Gladys." The thought was both thrilling and slightly terrifying. After years of living in Hayes's shadow, the prospect of public attention focused on her own achievements required an adjustment in perspective. Robert joined them, setting down 3 glasses of champagne. "A final toast," he proposed, "to new beginnings." They clinked glasses just as Danielle hurried over, her young face flushed with excitement. "Mum, the events coordinator said they sold out of every copy, every single one, and there's already a waiting list at the bookstore for more." Gladys pulled her daughter into a hug. "Thank you for being here tonight, sweetheart, for supporting me through all of this." "Are you kidding? This is the coolest thing ever," Danielle declared. "My friends can't believe my mum is an actual published author." "A published author with a very long day tomorrow," Robert reminded them gently. "You have that radio interview at 8, then the bookstore event at noon." Gladys groaned. "Don't remind me. I should probably get home and try to sleep." The 4 of them, Gladys, Danielle, Robert, and Casey, made their way out of the library and into the cool Seattle night. As they walked toward the parking garage, Gladys paused to look back at the building, its modern architecture illuminated against the night sky. "It's really happening, isn't it?" she said softly. "This new life. It's been happening for a year," Danielle pointed out. "Tonight just makes it official." Casey hugged her friend impulsively. "From the moment you stood up for yourself at that party, you've been building this path, one step at a time. Some steps were harder than others," Gladys acknowledged. "But look where they led you," Robert said, taking her hand. "Look where you are now." Indeed, Gladys thought as they continued toward the car. From the humiliation of that anniversary party to the triumph of this book launch, the journey had been arduous but transformative. She had lost a marriage, but found herself. She had surrendered certain comforts, but gained authentic happiness. She had weathered public scandal, only to emerge with a voice strong enough to tell her own story, on her own terms. The following morning, as Gladys prepared for her radio interview, her phone pinged with a notification. Her publicist had forwarded a review from the New York Times. Kingston's debut novel pulses with authenticity and hard-won wisdom. The price of loyalty is not merely a tale of betrayal and revenge, but a nuanced exploration of a woman's journey from self-abnegation to self-actualization. In an era where female anger is too often dismissed or pathologized, Kingston offers a refreshing vision of rage as a catalyst for necessary change. Gladys read the words twice, letting them sink in. Rage as a catalyst for necessary change. Yes, that was it exactly. The anger she had felt that night, slapping Tiffany Riker in front of 200 guests, had not consumed her. Instead, it had fueled a transformation more profound than she could have imagined. Danielle appeared in the doorway of Gladys's bedroom, already dressed for school. "Ready for your big interview, Mom?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Gladys replied, setting down her phone. "Are you sure you don't want to skip first period and come with me? It might be fun." "Tempting, but I have a calculus test," Danielle said regretfully. "I'll listen to the interview online later. Dad said he's going to listen too." The casual mention of Hayes, so natural now in their daily conversations, no longer caused Gladys pain. That, perhaps, was the most surprising victory of all. Not the professional success or financial independence, but the emotional freedom from a relationship that had once defined her. "Well, wish me luck," Gladys said, grabbing her purse and the folder containing talking points her publicist had prepared. "You don't need luck," Danielle replied confidently. "You've got this, Mom, just like you've had everything else this year." As they left the apartment together, Danielle heading to school, Gladys to the radio station, the morning sunlight broke through Seattle's perpetual clouds, casting everything in a golden glow. It felt, Gladys thought, like an auspicious beginning to the next chapter of her story. In the car, she found herself thinking about the protagonist of her novel, a woman who discovered her own strength through adversity. Art imitating life, or life imitating art? Perhaps both, in an endless, reciprocal dance of experience and expression. The radio host introduced her as Gladys Kingston, whose meteoric rise from society wife to literary sensation has captivated readers nationwide. Or, it was a simplification, of course, as media narratives always are. The true story, her story, was more complex, more painful, and ultimately more redemptive than any soundbite could capture. But as she spoke about her book, about the universal themes of betrayal and rebirth that had resonated with so many readers, Gladys felt a profound gratitude for every moment of the journey, even the most painful ones. Without the public humiliation of that anniversary party, without the rage that had finally broken through years of accommodation and compromise, she might never have found the courage to reclaim her voice. The price of betrayal had been high, but the rewards of authenticity were proving immeasurable. After the interview, Gladys checked her phone to find a text message from an unknown number. Opening it, she was surprised to see it was from Tiffany Riker. "Heard your interview this morning. Your book sounds amazing. For what it's worth, I'm sorry for my role in everything that happened. You deserved better, and I'm glad you found it." Gladys stared at the message, unsure how to respond, or even if she should. After a moment's reflection, she typed, "Thank you, Tiffany. I hope you found your path forward as well." It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was acknowledgement of shared humanity, of the messy, complicated ways people hurt and heal each other. In the end, that was what her book was about, and what her life had become a testament to: the resilience of the human spirit, the possibility of transformation, and the power of owning one's story. As she drove to her next event, Gladys glanced in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the woman who looked back at her, confident, purposeful, at peace with both her past and her future. So different from the woman who had stood frozen in that ballroom a year ago, watching her marriage crumble in public. The price of betrayal, she murmured to herself, was worth every penny. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of betrayal, empowerment, and renewal, please subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories that explore the depths of human experience. Don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support allows us to continue bringing these powerful narratives to life. Thank you for listening.